All right, so I want to take a look at consecutive numbers. And before we even move forward, let's define consecutive. Consecutive means right next to each other, next to each other. And since we're talking numbers, let me say, if I gave you the number 10 and I asked you what is the next consecutive whole number, the next number would be 11. That's what consecutive means, right next to each other. So if I gave you 10 and asked you what would be the next consecutive number, 11. If I asked you what is the consecutive number before that, it would be 9. Okay. So this says fill out your own examples to fill this out, because I want to make sure that I cover each kind of or each type of question that you're going to get. So we're going to go into Delta Math, and you can see that with product, because you see it says product consecutive integers, we have consecutive integers, and then we have consecutive even and odd integers. So you see consecutive even and odd integers. And then you have it with the product of ages, and then you have two kind of questions on sum of ages, either consecutive or even and odd. So consecutive and even and odd. So I left these blank because I'm just randomly going to pick some just to show you. So we're going to start with the first one, consecutive integers. And I could do consecutive integers, or I could do product of ages. The question is the same, okay? So actually, I'll stick with this since I've just put this one on there. All right, so here's my question. So we are going to fill this in for Aubrey. Okay, so although it doesn't say Aubrey is younger than Kim, this says is older than Chase. Also, let me find one that says like that. It's older than Chase. Younger, and it doesn't matter. Younger. I just don't want to rewrite it. Younger. Okay, there it is, older. All right, so older than Chase. Their ages are consecutive integers. That means if one is 10, the other is 11. Find Mav's age if the product is 42. So this way I can fill this out without having to write. Their ages are consecutive integers. Find Aubrey's age if the product of their ages is, and I'm going to fill this out, 42. So the only thing that's going to change here is this number here and whether Aubrey is older or younger. And I'm going to deal with both just so that whatever you're going to get is fine. All right, so it says define the problem. So that's all I needed from there. Define the problem with variables. Okay, so let's see what the situation said. It says Aubrey is older than Chase. Their ages are consecutive. So let me just go ahead and write this. For example, let's say one person is 10. In order for their ages to be consecutive, again, what does consecutive mean? Right next to each other, the next person will be 11. And then you would decide, okay, Aubrey is older than Chase. So then this would mean this is Chase because he's younger, and this is Aubrey because he is older. So that's the difference when you're seeing older and younger. You just have to decide which number belongs to who. Okay, so that's if they were 10 and 11, right? However, we don't know their age. So what we do know is that when you multiply the ages together, you're going to get 42. That means, say Chase's age is X. I don't know what his age is. For Aubrey's age to be consecutive, it would be Chase's age, which is, I don't know what it is, and then I would add one number to it for it to be next. So for example, if Chase was 10, to find Aubrey's age, I would say 10 plus 1, which would give me what? 11. Okay, so this just means one bigger than whoever's age this is. Okay, the product means that you're going to multiply that, and that answer is going to give you 42. Okay, that is the hardest thing to write down. Once you've written that out, it is simply a matter of putting it into Desmos. So I'm going to type it into Desmos. So X parentheses, X plus 1, close parentheses, and this has to equal 42. Now, we have two answers here. First of all, is it possible for X to be a negative 7? Is it possible for Chase's age to be negative 7? Absolutely not. Okay, so this would not make sense. So the only age that would make sense is 6. So what that means is you're saying that X is equal to 6, right? And this is Chase's age. So Aubrey is older than Chase. So this is Chase. And then you're saying X plus 1 has to be that plus 1, which is 7. And this is Aubrey's age. And now you're just trying to find Aubrey's age. So which age are you looking for? You're looking for Aubrey. So you would put 7 as your answer. I'm also going to show you a different method, which we named London's method. This was a student who came up with this. So I am going to also mention that now. This student said, okay, I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 42. because I know they're consecutive, they have to be right next to each other. But if I wrote down all the factors of 42, so let's say I check 2, I can have 2 times 21, but are those consecutive? No, they're not right next to each other. So even though they give me 42, they're not consecutive. So it's not what I'm looking for. So 3, 3, 14, even though those are 42, are they consecutive? No. So I keep going. 4, 4, 10.5, no. 5, no. 6, okay, I have 6 times 7. All right, is 6 and 7 consecutive numbers? Yes. So my two numbers that are consecutive that will give me a product of 42 are 6 and 7. And now you just need to determine whose age is who. Well, it says Aubrey is older than Chase. So Aubrey has to be the bigger number. So Aubrey's age is 7. This is called the London's method. This was a student who came up with this method, which I so loved. So if you understood that better, please go with that. All right. If I gave you consecutive, even, and odd, what does that change? All right, so let me get an example for consecutive, even, and odd. All right, the product of two consecutive, positive, even, so yep, this works, is 80. Find the value of the greater integer. All right, so let's talk about in numbers, right, what this means. Okay. The product of two consecutive positive even. So think about that. It has to be positive and they have to be even. What are even numbers? 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do you appreciate? All right, so let's talk about even numbers. So let's say, for example, I have, I don't know, I start with an even number. So let me start with any even number. Let's say 10, since we started with 10 before. It says the next consecutive, which is the number next to, but it also has to be even. So if it's the number next to that's even, can I say 11? No, because 11 is not even, 11 is odd. So for the next number to be even, it must be 12. All right, so if you know that the next number you have to, in order to get from one number to the next, you have to add 2, then you're going to start off with, okay, this is the first even number I have, and then I'm going to multiply by my next even number, which I have to add 2 to the number I started off with in order for it to be even, and that product has to be equal to 80. So we're rewriting our equation. Instead of x plus 1, because that will now give me an odd number, it has to be x plus 2 in order for it to be even. And the same thing with if the question was odd. So for example, if the question was I started with 11 and I said, what's the next consecutive odd number? Well, is 12 odd? No. So the next consecutive odd number, which would be 13, is still 2 away. So whether they're asking for even or odd, it doesn't matter. It's your first number, all right, multiplied by that number added 2 to, because that's going to give you the next even slash odd number. All right, and again, once you find that, that's the hardest part, is just writing it down. Once you find that out, now you're just typing it into Desmos as the equation. So x, this time it's x plus 2, and that product has to be 80. When I multiply together, the product must be 80. And so here are my two solutions. Is it possible for it to be negative? No, because it said positive. Now, if it said negative, then you would take the negative answer. So the question could change. You just have to read it. So I need the positive number, which means my first number is 8, which means my next number has to be what? 10, right? And does that work? Yes, it does. All right, so my x is equal to 8 and my x plus 2 is equal to 10. And which one do they want? They want the greater number. All right, so my greater number is 10. All right, the last two are the sum. So now instead of multiplying, what does sum mean? Sum means to add. So whatever my two things are, I'm adding them. So I'm going to leave that in the answer choice and write it. Since we've established this one might be a little bit more complicated than this one, you're going to do this question and I'm going to pull up a question for you to do. And I'm going to do this one. It's completely different, so you're not going to do it as I'm doing mine, but rather after for me to check your understanding. So I need one that says sum consecutive. So I'm going to go to sum. And again, it could be sum of ages. Oh, I guess that's the only option. I'm doing consecutive, even, and odd. You're going to do a consecutive integer one. All right, Yusuf is older. I'm looking for a younger one. Again, it doesn't matter. Okay, here's a younger one. It doesn't matter. I just don't want to rewrite my question. All right, so younger than Cameron, the ages are consecutive odd integers. Okay, and there we go. It's odd on this question too. All right, consecutive odd. That means 3, 1, 3, 5, 7, like that. Those are odd numbers. And then consecutive means the next to each other but odd. Find the age if the sum of the square of Indigo's age is 4 times Cameron's age. All right, so if the sum, so now we have to kind of think sum is what? Plus of the square. So that means I have to square Adriel's age, and 4 times Cameron's age is blah, blah, blah. All right, so I just needed to fill in my missing numbers. So this is 4 times, and the age is 229. All right, so again, kind of thinking through our problem, we're just going to go, step by step. So let's think about it right now. If I had an example, and this is odd integers, so let's say 11, because, I don't know why we're picking 10 and 11 each time, but let's say 11. The next odd integer is not going to be 12 because that's even. It's going to be 13. So to get from 11 to 13, you're going to add 2. So if I start with x, then the next one I have to add x plus 2, correct? So if I start with x, my consecutive odd next would be x plus 2. All right, there's a little bit more entailed in this, so I'm actually not going to write it out just yet. It says the sum of the square. So when I add these two things together, the sum of the square of Adriel's age. All right, so again, Adriel is younger, so Adriel is the smaller number is what it's saying. The sum of the smaller number, which is going to be what smaller? Is it x or x plus 2? X. So the sum of the square of this x, and what does square mean? Just square it, right? The sum of the square and 4 times J's age. So this is A's age, this is J's age. So this is 4 times that age is equal to that. So now I got it. So this is going to be what we have. We're going to have x squared, okay, plus, because it says sum, 4 times J's age, and that's going to equal 229. Again, the hardest part is getting the algebraic expression. After that, you're just going to put it into the calculator and see what those numbers are. So this is going to be x squared. Then we're going to get 4 times J's age, and that's going to be 229. All right, zooming out. Is it possible to have negative 17 and 13? So let's look at our situation. This is ages, so it's not possible to have negative, so x must be 13. All right, so x is equal to 13, which means x plus 2 has to equal 15. And now you just need to know who's who, right? So Adriel is younger than J, so this is A's age and this is J's age. And who are we looking for? Find A's age. All right, so A's age is 13. Okay. All right. That's a little bit more complicated. I hope they don't give you that kind of question. However, you're just writing the algebraic expression. Once you write it in, you're putting in decimals and finding your two solutions, asking yourself if it makes sense in the context of the problem, then choosing the solution to go with. So I'm going to start you off with yours, the one that you're going to do. So this one is going to be that one. Liam is older. Okay, perfect. So yours is name is older. Their ages are... Find Liam's age if the sum of the square of Liam's age. Liam, okay. So the sum of the square and 5 times Chloe's age is 121. All right. So I'm just going to start you off, but you're going to finish it. All right. So again, the sum, let's see, find consecutive. So this is saying consecutive integers, the numbers are right next to each other. So for example, if I had 10, the numbers would be right next to each other. Does it tell me odd, even? No, it doesn't. So if one is 10, the next one is 11. How do I go from 10 to 11? I'm just going to add 1. So the first person is going to be X, and we're going to say who's the younger one. N is older than K. So this is going to be K. and N's age is going to be X plus 1, and I just can't pronounce their names. All right, so that's what your situation is. So find the sum. So you're going to add them together of the square of N age and 5 times K's age. Okay, so again, which one is K? Multiply that by 5 equals 121. Put that into the calculator, find your x-intercepts, root solutions, or zeros, and then ask yourself which. Let's practice.